on every single level we master. There is no impedance except for ourselves. We know that when we start having these forces that are against us, it's our own egregor. There's ways to start nullifying even the power of the egregor, like removing things like old pictures of you and Winnie the Pooh. It's time to let certain things go. Like you can, I'm only laughing because that's something I saw 15 years ago. We were going through a picture bag and I'm sitting there with Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I immediately thought of the old tribesmen talking, not wanting to get their picture took, right? And it's just when we connect these, we just need to understand that there's so much more than just looking back all the time. We don't have, and you see how the reality of being driven on scarcity, and for sure, and Chris and Cherie, for sure, the actual truth is it's got more energy than you can hold. Sometimes you're in there like, man, somebody needs to broker this energy or touch me or something. Or should I turn around? Should I scream? No, I should just be cool. I don't want to be. And it's just like those journeys can be that powerful. And that's all this energetic potential waiting to flow into the intentions. Like I always say to people, when are we ever going to sit at this table in this ceremony without the healing agenda? Let's come in here already healed and let's get some work done. Now, what are we going to do? And I want to deliver this. Now, this is how, like after that process of now the confrontation of Mr. Cobra, which is basically the reptilian side of the consciousness asking you, why don't you know about it? What you have to immediately begin to reflect is that you already know everything. And man's knowledge, as is stated in the book, is foolishness to God. The God is you. Man's knowledge is foolishness to the supreme. The reason why is like this whole thing in the matrix about all the rules and the measurements and all that, man, that has nothing to do with what goes on outside of this. It's unhindered, unlimited. That's like when you get into the party, man. So you can't confuse the two. And so now we're at this point where once you get beyond that, now this is how you go back to perpetual energy or forward to perpetual energy. You now start witnessing in this, you need to had already figured out some kind of chakra activating element, whether that's your ceremony, whether you can do that in meditation, whether you have a diamond to do it with, whatever. But at a certain point, as you see how powerful your breaths are, when you over oxygenate yourself, this means it's taking like several breaths. You could do it for about 5 minutes, deep breaths. What happens is your body actually doesn't need oxygen anymore. Like it actually doesn't need oxygen for at least the next 10 minutes, according to the oxygen supply in your blood. So what happens in many of these sessions is you actually obtain the first part of the mind over matter concept, which is basically realizing you don't really need to breathe. But because the egregor has this body memory, what will happen to it is it knows its own time span of when it needs to breathe. So it basically dies, goes to sleep or something. And then once that occurs, you end up in this space to where now what you can do with your breaths, when you start taking your breaths again, is you close the gates. Meaning the gate is how much you're breathing in and you're breathing out. And see how small, and you can do this especially by looking at a single candle, see how small you can create the gate between breathing in and breathing out. This is how you unlock. That's basically what you're doing right then is you're splitting the atom. And it's because you now close the gate of your own cycle so small that now you're demanding that you can harness all the potential of that one next breath. This is the deepest teaching of the breathing. But then I got to the point to where I can explain this easier because actually doing this. Then when you get the gate so small, something happens. Things reverse. Now, it's important not to get into the R complex of the reptilian portion of the brain in order to get to this. Meaning there can be no thinking. That's why you focus on the breath. Then what happens is you start feeling this. You literally feel there's a shift as if the aura is reversed. Now, this is what's interesting. This is not a direction. I cannot tell you it's left or right. I can't tell you it's opposite to the way your aura is spinning. This thing is moving in all directions, which is why I can't give you a verbal direction. And this is why I knew I had hit another space, because the body immediately went into more of a perpetual, where the energy that was coming in was driving in more energy to the body, as if I was getting younger and younger and younger. And it started with me nullifying the judgments and duality and getting past that final chapter. Well, if you know it all, then why? Then where's this knowledge? And basically, it wants to accuse you. And that's why it's called the accuser. It gets in there and the egregor starts to try to accuse you of all the shit that it knows, all the things that it's been through. And that's all that physical body ID stuff. And that's an easy husk, just like a pharaoh, to get right back into, with a face of gold and everything, ready to mine. That's what I see going on here. I can see so deep in quantum into this reality. I'm deep in the scope.